Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
I wonder if you've ever heard of a woman called Joanna Natasagara. You ever heard of her? Have you ever heard tell of her? Very Irish thing to do. Have you ever heard tell of her? She's a Mancunian lass from Manchester. She produced The White Helmets, a documentary about the so-called first responders and first aiders in Syria who have been portrayed in the Western media as a wonderful humanitarian group doing great work, treating the injured, saving the babies, pulling people out of buildings and all of that. So Joanna Natasagara from Manchester produced The White Helmets. It was on Netflix and it won Best Documentary at the Oscars last night. Sadly. Why sadly, you cry? Because I had the misfortune to see it when it came out, and it is the worst pile of shit ever committed to celluloid. So slanted and subjective is this film that the word propaganda doesn't even cover it. It is garbage. Now, we've spoken to Syrian people on this programme, you will remember, and investigative journalists, you will remember, who have proven beyond any doubt that these actors, ironically, the White Helmets, are Western-funded propagandists set up to sell Western intervention in Syria to the rest of the world. That is why they were set up. Simple as that. All right? So this has been getting a lot of coverage today, not only here in the UK but in the US as well. The Oscars has gotten unbelievable coverage because of a faux pas, because of a mistake at the very end of the evening when they were announcing the Best Picture Oscar. They made a mistake. They made a mistake. They said that La La Land had won the Oscar for Best Picture when it hadn't won the Oscar for Best Picture. In fact, the film that won was Moonlight. A lot of conspiracy theorists saying today, that's a big conspiracy. Don't know if it is. Could be, could not be. I have no idea whatsoever. Back to the White Helmets. Lizzie Phelan reporting for RT today on, well, what the White Helmets really are.
The White Helmets receiving this Oscar really is just the pinnacle of the love and adoration that they have been receiving now for some time by the Western media industry and politicians. Of course, they have been, before producing this documentary, they've been producing videos of the rescue operations that the Western media have lapped up almost without question. And those videos have been funded to the tune of millions by Western governments, including the American, the British and the French governments. But there's been many very serious allegations levelled at the White Helmets about some of their activities, and that main allegation is that the White Helmets, rather than being a benign humanitarian organisation, are in fact almost exclusively a support service for extremist organisations that have been fighting against the Syrian government, including one of the most extreme organisations in Syria, the Fatah al-Sham Front, formerly named the Al-Nusra Front and linked to Al-Qaeda. There have been many photos and videos circulating online of the White Helmets members alongside these extremist groups.
And on there, sorry for the audio quality there, couldn't do anything about that, but you heard Lizzie Phelan clearly. They have links to known terrorist organisations. In fact, videos on such terrific websites as liveleak.com, which of course is run from Manchester by my friend Hayden Hewitt, videos have shown them hoisting the flags of some of these terrorist organisations, some of these jihadis. Now, we went into great detail last year talking about the White Helmets, the funding they receive from the UK and from the US. Not only that, but how all roads lead to George Soros. They're a propaganda group basically selling the idea of Western intervention to the rest of the world. Now, on their homepage, they call for a no-fly zone. On their homepage. Imagine you're told by the documentarians and by the Western media that these people are innocent, they're on no side, they are apolitical, they are there to help first responders, yet on their homepage they are calling for a no-fly zone, which would of course pave the way for hundreds of thousands of troops to flood into Syria and finish the job they've been unable to accomplish, and that is get rid of Bashar al-Assad. That's your white helmets. And I know there are people who listen to this programme and they do send me emails at times saying you're very harsh at times, Richie, you're unfair. Maybe Joanna Natasagara from Manchester, maybe she, maybe she went out there and maybe she saw what she was given to see and they made a film based on what they believed, even if it's wrong. Well, I don't believe you could travel there and film with these people and not understand who they really are. That's my opinion, for what it's worth. But I will acknowledge I've not been out there. But I know what's going on out there. I don't know everything. I know what's going on out there. And I know who the white helmets really are. By the way, speaking of RT, they ran a story today about senior citizens being threatened with fines for sweeping up leaves. You're shitting me, Richie. No, I'm not. Senior citizens being threatened for sweeping up leaves. Here we go.
2 elderly pensioners who raked up leaves outside their care home to stop people from slipping on them have been threatened by the council with a fine. The 2 ladies, one recovering from a hip replacement and one a cancer survivor, were warned by Birmingham Council that the bin bags full of leaves amounted to fly tipping. The great-grandmother of 3 and former lollipop lady had previously contacted the local authority after slipping on the leaves. Their concerns were dismissed by the council, who said the leaf fall was an act of God.
An act of God, and you are fly tipping by gathering up the leaves and putting them in bin liners. Most people, when they hear stories like that, they think it's much ado about nothing and it's just a bit of bureaucratic silliness. It isn't. It's autocratic silliness, not bureaucratic silliness. It's tyranny to threaten people with fines for cleaning up leaves and placing them in bin bags. Now, there's a massive story there about local authorities and councils and their tyrannical behaviour, some of which I've gotten into on this programme in the past, including my own experience of being threatened by Manchester City Council over council tax they said was owed to them, which never was. And by the way, on that, I must mention that Sir Gerald Kaufman passed away over the weekend. He was the MP in the constituency in which I live in. He was very, very critical of the policies of Israel, having been a Zionist supporter for many, many years. He changed his tune on Zionism. And when I contacted him to ask him to deal with the outrageous behaviour of Manchester City Council, he was very good and he was very nice and he took it very seriously. So to those people who live in the constituency where I live, to those of you who listen to this programme and who had fond opinions of Gerald Kaufman, may he rest in peace. I didn't know him, but when I needed him, he was there for me. So good luck to him on his onward journey. I meant to put that in the notes, but I forgot. I just reminded myself of it there. Now, the historic child abuse inquiry is underway. It's called the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, and it is looking at the way organisations protected children outside the UK at the first phase. So the first phase of this is to look at the way organisations have protected children outside the United Kingdom. Between 7,000 and 10,000 children were moved to Australia after World War II. They were recruited by predatory religious institutions from the Anglican and Catholic denominations and charities, including Bernardo's and the Fairbridge Society. The idea was to give the children a better life. However, many of them went on to suffer physical and sexual abuse in homes and so-called farm schools run by religious orders and charities. Now, the Independent Inquiry was set up after the death of Jimmy Savile in 2011, when hundreds of people came forward to say that he had abused them when they were children. The IICSA has apologised after mistakenly sending out confidential information. So people who had registered an interest in attending victims' forums, which are being organised by the inquiry, some of those people were sent an email on Monday that revealed the email addresses of others who had registered. 90 people were affected. This is not good. Nigel O'Mara, who's been on this programme before, a man we like very much. Nigel is a survivor. He said that the breach of data is very concerning to survivors, as these are the very people we are supposed to trust with the details of our abuse. Now, one of the lawyers heading up the inquiry under the chairwoman Alexis J is Henrietta Hill. Henrietta Hill had this to say today.
In the receiving countries, most children were placed in institutions or in farm schools where they provided labour and domestic services, or with families. In those institutions or schools, child migrants have given evidence that they were frequently subjected to extremely harsh conditions, hard labour and physical abuse by those responsible for their welfare. In addition, there are allegations of widespread and systematic sexual abuse taking place in those institutions, or some of them. Some former child migrants have alleged they were subjected to sexual abuse prior to their migration in homes and other institutions in England and Wales.
Some of the survivors were barely able to speak today. They were so emotional. God love them. You could understand that. Now, over the weekend, it was announced, in fact, I think it was announced on Friday, that there have been over 100 allegations of sexual abuse and exploitation by United Nations and French peacekeepers in the Central African Republic. You might have caught that report. It was extraordinary, I suppose, for most people who don't understand the scale of child abuse globally. But for most, like I said, for most ordinary men and women, to see Fergal Keane's report for the BBC, it would have been shocking for them. I mean, peacekeepers abusing children, eh? What the bloody hell is going on? And that report is on the BBC YouTube page. I recommend you have a look at that. And all of that was going on. And when all of that was going on, I should say, it was mentioned, it was announced that a new report has revealed that Pope Francis is quietly making the Catholic Church a safe space for paedophile priests. The Associated Press reports that Pope Francis is reducing sanctions against paedophile priests and even refusing to defrock priests found guilty of sexually abusing children. And this is all in the name of mercy. In one particularly egregious case, writes the BBC, Francis let off one notorious paedophile priest, the Reverend Mauro Inzoli, with a lifetime of prayer for abusing 5 young boys, some of them as young as 12. Now, the Inzoli case is one of several cases in which Pope Francis overruled the advice of the Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of the Defrocked. Let me read that again. I'm a muppet. The Inzoli case is one of several in which the Pope overruled the advice of the Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. And Francis reduced the sentence that called for the priest to be defrocked. So they weren't defrocked. Instead, they were given penalties, including a lifetime of penance and prayer and removal from public ministry. Now, the report says that by refusing to punish pedophile priests, Francis is going against the recommendations of his advisors in an attempt to show mercy. I wonder when people will realise the scale of pedophilia in the world, when people will come to terms with the endemic nature of it. When will they realise that his predecessor, Pope Benedict, when he was Cardinal Ratzinger, this bastard was writing to cardinals in Ireland, telling them not to share information with the Garda Síochána, the Irish police, about priests who were abusing boys. Cardinal Ratzinger, who went on to be Pope, was actually telling cardinals in Ireland, move these priests on to other parishes and tell them to behave themselves. Eh? When will people realise the scale of it? And all those children sent out to Australia, the people abusing them were establishment people, politicians, priests, businessmen and women. And those children were taken out there to be abused. When will people understand what's going on? What is going on? Not what has gone on, but what is going on. 21 past the hour. Sexting teaching. It was in the Telegraph and the Guardian today that most people who are surveyed by a charity in the UK, the charity is called Plan International. Most people surveyed by them think that teaching children about the impact of sexting and pornography is a good thing, and that schools should be teaching children these things. Plan International UK claims 75% of people think the impact of porn should be compulsory on the curriculum, while 7% oppose the move. 2,000 adults were surveyed. 71% of people wanted pupils to get advice, to get tuition, lessons even on sexting. Now, the UK Education Secretary is a woman called Justine Greening. She said she was looking at the issue, but they haven't proposed a change in the law just yet. Tanya Barron, the Chief Executive of Plan International UK, called for children's education to reflect the 21st century reality of their lives. It's a staggering stuff, this. It really is. Now, Liz Fraser is the founder of Headcase, which is a mental health charity dealing with children. Liz Fraser, she told this to Kay Burley on Sky News today.
Yes, where I think probably from year 6 onwards, so children are about 10 at that stage. For anyone who doesn't know what sexting is, I don't think we should assume that everybody knows exactly what it is, but it's where children are sort of goaded and encourage each other to take a photograph of themselves naked or part of their body in some sort of sexual way. It doesn't even have to be naked, by the way. And then send it to somebody in a text. Which of course is an interaction between two people, but that's not the case anymore, because he or she will send it to one person and that person will send it to goodness knows how many people, could put it on social media, and it could go viral within minutes. So it's not that we're telling them how to do it, it's that we're telling them something which is absolutely a part of their lives now. You know me well enough by now, Kay, and you know that I'm not a scaremonger, I'm not a cotton wool parent either, you know. So this isn't to do with, sort of panicking that this thing is happening and it's a real worry. This is a very real part of very young children's lives now, because young children have got smartphones, and it's a new form of bullying, it's a new form of pressure, where in the old days, yeah, you might be teased for a minute, but it wouldn't go all over social media. And you mentioned Headcase there, you know, the mental health website that I run. And, you know, we know that young children are suffering so badly with mental health problems now. Stress, anxiety, depression, self-harm in very young children. And sexting is very much a part of that now. Because you send one text, it's out there, all your friends have seen it. Children just disappear into a fear, a sort of self-loathing, a depression. The bullying is merciless. So of course we need to educate them about it, yeah.
We need to educate them about it. Now, this is extraordinary, and we've gotten into this in the past. They want to talk to children aged 10 about pornography and about sexting. And they want to do this without the express permission of the parents. Think about that. They want to legislate for the teaching of children aged 10, teaching them about sexting and pornography. They want to include it on the curriculum, and they want to do it in a way that even if the parents object to it, the children will be subjected to that. Isn't it interesting to note that nobody has mooted the solution or the scenario where we don't give smartphones to children aged, 12 or 13 years old and younger. Nobody has considered that it's a dreadful thing to see children as young as 10, as young as 7 and 8 years old walking around like morbid zombies with their heads stuck to their S7 and their iPhone 6 and whatever else the bloody brands are called, getting their information from these devices, interacting with God knows who on these devices. Nobody has said, maybe we should stop the kids using these devices. Now, it is absolutely heinous to me, the idea that a school backed by the government would decide to talk to children aged 10 about sex and pornography without the prior consent of the parents. This is a deadly, deadly serious issue, and it's one I have no doubt we'll get into in more detail in the coming days. That was all over the mainstream media today. And finally, for now, extraordinary story. I was tweeted this over the weekend by one of our listeners. A 17-year-old transgender boy completed an undefeated season on Saturday by winning a controversial Texas State girls wrestling title in an event clouded by criticism from those who believe the testosterone he's taking as he transitions from female to male created an unfair advantage. The family of Mac Beggs has said he would rather be wrestling boys, but state policy calls for students to wrestle against the gender listed on their birth certificates. So Beggs, a junior from Euless Trinity, beat Chelsea Sanchez in the 110-pound weight class to improve to 56 wins, no defeats, and earn the championship. Beggs fell to his knees for a moment after the win as a mixture of cheers and boos rained down on him. He then hugged his coach and left the mat. What is going on? What is going on? Lunacy reigns, doesn't it?